On the opening contest, it is scheduled for one fall with a 10-minute time limit. Introducing in the corner to my left, from parts unknown, weighing in at 215 pounds, here is Mr. X. And his opponent, making his way down the aisle, and it is from Puerto Rico, weighing 240 pounds, it is Pedro Morales.
Pedro Morales takes on Mr. X. We're set for action to begin in the opening contest.
Pausing for this commercial break. Ladies and gentlemen, it's going to happen tomorrow night, 8 p.m. at the Meadowlands Arena in East Rutherford, New Jersey. What's going to happen? The likes of the magnificent Morocco on the card as he defends his Intercontinental title against Mil Mascares. You're going to see King Kong Mosca meet Andre the Giant. A whole lot more topped all by the farewell appearance of Bruno Sammartino as he hopes to go out a winner against George the Animal Steele tomorrow night when wrestling debuts at the Meadowlands Arena, East Rutherford.
Mr. X being worked on by Pedro Morales.
Vince, Mr. X is not a big man, but I've saw him wrestle a couple of 2 or 3 times, and he's a very aggressive wrestler.
Pedro takes over Mr. X. Pedro can really whip you down on those arm drags and the likes.
He sure can, Vince. First of all, he knows how to position himself, and he's a very powerful man. And you know, Vince, ever since Pedro lost the championship, you can't take anything away from Pedro. Pedro seems to be getting better and better all the time. You really must respect a man like Pedro Morales.
Pedro on the southpaw, getting his dander up a bit. Mr. X comes in the hard way. Pedro, for a moment, appeared as though he's going to rip the mask off Mr. X.
Well, if someone is capable of doing that, Pedro is capable of doing that. Mr. X threatening Pedro, and that's the wrong thing to do when you're in the ring with Pedro.
Pedro hanging on to the mask. Again, locking up with Pedro. Pedro with a very nice maneuver. Nice takedown. Pedro doesn't use a great deal of finesse in the squared circle. He'll overpower you. Whatever, he doesn't have a great deal of finesse, though, does he, Pat?
Yes, he does. Well, Pedro is very aggressive because with the reputation that Pedro Morales has, every wrestler that steps in the ring with him would love to be able to get a win over Pedro, and he knows it. And because of that, Pedro has to be very defensive. And as we mentioned so many times before, that Pedro has a short fuse. He gets mad very fast. So Pedro does not use too much finesse when he's in the ring, but he can when he wants to.
Working on the ankle, I suppose, or would the pressure be applied to the knee?
On the ankle, Vince, but Pedro is really pulling on those toes. And now Mr. X really raked the eyes of Pedro. But Pedro blinded a little bit.
Morales being worked on. Mr. X appears to be a southpaw also, but does not have the power of a Pedro Morales. Mr. X to the buckle. Face first. Morales whips him to the ropes. Works on the midsection. My goodness, Pedro really taking over.
That was
Covers his man, hooks the leg, and he gets him.
That was a tremendous back breaker that Pedro applied on Mr. X. Really well done. Pedro smiling. Easy victory for Pedro Morales.
Boy, it's amazing how Pedro, as soon as the match is over, it's almost like a metamorphosis. He just completely changes.
It is the time of the fall. 17 winner, Pedro Morales.
Morales gets the Duke over Mr. X as we go now to slow motion action. Mr. X whipped to the ropes. Off the ropes, Pedro sets him up, really lets him have it in the midsection, doubles him over, and from there, Pedro with what was a devastating maneuver. The knee right into the spine, hooks the leg for leverage and insurance, covers him, it's all over. We'll be back as we continue with the magnificent Morocco.